It is finally time to get this thing finished up. To catch all up to speed, off camera I did some wet sanding, polishing, and then a whole lot of masking. You guys have seen me do that numerous times before. It's boring, it's repetitive, it's monotonous, and it's not that fun to record. Speaking of recording, a lot of you should know my methods by now. When I got paint mixed up, I will spray everything that is that color. From there, I will start assembly in the order of whichever parts are dry first. And then I will piece all the little clips together to make it look like it flows and everything makes sense and I know what I'm doing. What that means, however, is there's going to be some continuity errors in this video. This one in particular. So if you guys see me assemble something to 3 or 4 clips on down the road, it's unassembled, or even things from past videos, don't worry. There is a method behind all that madness that works for me. Alrighty, so where are we at on the video? We're painting the black edges around some windows. This is another one of those things you guys have all seen me do before. There's thousands of tutorials out there. I think even I have a tutorial on how to do the masking to get the black edge. If I don't have a tutorial, you guys want to see one? Should I make one of those? I know I got a few if your kit comes with the pre-cut or die-cut masking templates. I do not know, though, if I've ever done a tutorial on what to do if they don't come with the masking templates. Anywho, if you guys want to see that method in the future, let me know. I'll hit the record button next time. Now it's finally time to see if all that masking done its job. It's all looking pretty good so far. And no, that's not foreshadowing. Masking is one of the very few things that I'm fairly decent at. Back to the interior, I'm going to do a very quick, messy coat of that same gray on the A-pillars and the headliner. Here's a pro tip. If you go straight into trying to install your windshield while that paint we just applied is still wet, it will actually hold the windshield in place while you get the glue in. What is it John Ross says? It's a happy little accident. The rear window is just as easy to install. Maybe even easier. The interior tub, it's one of the few areas that actually gave me some trouble. Now getting it into place was actually pretty easy. Making it stay there though, a completely different story. If you look very carefully, there's a gap in the cowl area. I actually had to mix up some 2-part epoxy and put some clamps on that overnight. The chassis, on the other hand, Probably one of the easiest chassis I've ever installed. On the rear of the truck, there's a little lip on the roll pan. This slides under, then it just kind of levers into place. Then it's kind of just wedged in place between the lower rocker panels of the chassis, and it pinches in and just holds it in place. I know I said it earlier, but I am thoroughly surprised at how well this is going together. Even the buckets for the headlight, everything had a little notch or a key that it lined up with and just held in place perfectly. Yes, I finally bought some of this stuff. I picked up some of the clear red while I was in town as well, but for now, it's time to see what all the hype is about. The first impression is that it goes on thin, extremely thin. This is what 3 coats looks like. It also doesn't dry very quick. If you look very close at the masking, there's a little string that pulls off with it as well. So with me being me, we're going to do a little comparison. In the past, I've always used Sharpies to get these colors, and there is no comparison. Now, I don't know if it's because my Sharpie is old and faded and needs replaced, but this stuff is awesome. That little jar was only $3 or $4. I truly wish I would have picked it up earlier in my modeling career. And please note, that is skill modeling and not runway modeling. I'm a fat drunk. Nobody wants to see me up on a stage anywhere, I promise you. Now, recently I kind of discovered a method where I don't actually clean these up from the sprue. I just wedge them in place and let them hold there by a friction fit. So far, even after years, it's proven to be permanent, and there's no chance of messing anything up with glue. Back on episode 2, I think it was, you guys saw me make and fit this mesh. All I've done is paint it black and actually glue it in place. I mentioned earlier there were just a few areas of this kit that fought me. This front bumper was the other one. It actually fits in place, and it fits very well. The only problem I ran into was the inconsistent gap between the headlights and that bumper. Now that could have been me. I had to hold it in place while the glue dried, and I might have moved a little bit. I don't know. It was probably me. Now with the front knocked out, we can move around to the back of the truck. It's a lot less involved back here. Hardest thing was making these taillights fit. Now, just like the gauge cluster in the last video, I just left the backing paper on this decal and glued it in place as is. These are the front discs that came with the kit. I don't like them that well. A few years ago, I ordered about 4 or 5 of these disc brake kits from Zoom-On. They're universal, and just about everything requires modifications to fit. These ones were not that bad. All I did was drill out the center hole so that they fit on the mounting hub part of the back of the wheel. I did indeed want these to mount as deep as possible so they look more realistic, but more importantly, they did not interfere with anything on the chassis. Speaking of the wheels, I'm going to use some Tamiya TS80 Matte Clear. What that's going to do is knock off all the toy-like shine on his super bright chrome wheels. Already, you can see it's already starting to knock it down and give it more of a dull cast aluminium look. For the tires themselves, they're two-sided. They got one side branded and one side smooth. I actually prefer the smooth side on these tires, so I'm going to assemble everything so the smooth side is facing out. And do take note, these alignment pin things, they do not work that well. I ended up just cutting them off flush and then aligning all the spokes by eye. As far as the photo etch goes, we had a whole lot of options for the faces of the rotors. What I ended up doing was just using the plain boring side and then just done kind of a circular sand on it, so it actually makes it look like they've been used. Now that the paint and glue is dried, I'm just going to drop them in place. Now they're kind of subtle. If you don't know that they're there, they're probably easy to overlook. Either way though, they look a whole lot better than the box stock front discs and the drum brakes they gave us for the rear. Now I'm going to want to... Oh, the other wheel fell off. Damn it. As I was saying though, I'm going to use a slow setting glue. That way I have time to rotate these and get that caliper exactly where I want it. And for that, all I really want is just a caliper to be in a vertical 90-degree position to look kind of more like the modern Hellcats and Vipers. That glue has finally had some time to set up and dry, so I'm going to do my own personal sanity check and just make sure it's setting level and all four wheels are touching the ground. Now there is some flex in the suspension here, but I assure you it is setting flat and level. These mirrors were actually like step 3 or 4 in the instructions. I always save them for the very, very last. You saw how much I handled the body. Chances are if you glue them in early, they're just going to get broken off. Just like the wheels, I'm using that slow setting glue. That way I have some time to actually position these and make sure they're the same from left to right. The downside to this, however, is it doesn't instantly dry. So you got to babysit these for a few minutes just to make sure that when the glue does start to dry and harden, they're held in place where you want them to be. Now, as a last minute turn of events, I decided that I do want that fireproof carpet thing that goes on the bottom side of the hood. In the real world, these things are actually made out of a batting of fiberglass. To recreate that fabric-like texture, I just turned the PSI down on the airbrush and moved way back about a foot. What that does is it allows some of the paint particulates to dry in the air, so when they hit the wet paint, they stick in place and they create kind of a texture. And with the final piece of the puzzle installed, we could finally call this thing done. Oh wait, never mind. I forgot about this thing. Now it's finally done. As I mentioned earlier, this thing went together super easy. It only gave me just a few problems, which I had pointed out in the video. Honestly, I've had a few Tamiya kits that gave me more grief than this kit did. That is it for this one though, guys. If you watched the entire build, thank you so much for following along. As always, like, subscribe, comment, but more importantly, share this. Get people building model cars again.